Good morning, everyone. How are you doing this morning? I am Makeda Valletta, also known as the Body Scientist. And in case you're unfamiliar with me, I have a background in exercise and sports science, nutrition science. I have a holistic approach to health, and preventative approach. And I am also an educator and a researcher, okay? And so I like to, and I travel a lot, okay? So wherever I travel, in the USA, out of the USA, I'm always examining access to a healthy lifestyle, healthy, active lifestyle, right? That's really important to me because if we're talking about health, right, and longevity, which is a priority to me. It's a priority to me to live a long, functional life, meaning, living a long life, but being able to function and be healthy and have, my faculties about me. It's also my goal to help those in my family, my parents, be as healthy as possible and as functional as possible as they age, okay? And so, a lot of people talk about healthcare. And to me, healthcare is more than just access to a doctor and access to a medical system. Healthcare, for me, is also access to good food, okay? Access to good air. Access to good quality cleaning products and soaps and, lotions. It is, mental health. Access to being able to be active, okay? Because, some places, like a lot of the USA and suburban USA, people don't walk anywhere. They're always driving, right? So all those things are things I look at when I look at access to a healthy, active lifestyle. Now, I've done videos in the past about the food systems in America and other countries because I constantly hear people recite this statement that all the food in the USA is bad. People say this as if it's a fact, that the food in the US is below the standards of the world. It's the worst food in the world, and everybody else has better food. I've met people from the Caribbean, people from Africa, people from South America who may try to speak as if their food quality is better than ours, right? And when I travel, I have found that not to be the case. That is actually one of the reasons why I was motivated to go to Europe, was because whenever I would go to the Caribbean, Central, or South America, I felt like I was going backwards, okay, when it comes to quality of food and access to a healthy, active lifestyle. And I knew Europe to be the only place to have, food standards. And so when I went to Europe, I was really looking at that, and I did videos on that, and there's so much to say. But today, I'm going to talk about Senegal, okay? I just came back from Dakar, Senegal. I was supposed to be there for 10 days, but I only made it for 5, okay? And that 5th day was my absolute, dead last drop of energy or patience I had to stay there. And I actually wanted to leave sooner, okay? Now, I'm going to talk about why, okay? Because for me, again, it's important, to have good quality food. If I don't have good quality food every day, I'm very sensitive to air, which is why, where I live, I have wood floors. I have no carpet. I keep my windows open. I have lots of plants in my apartment so I can have good air quality. I can't stand to step in a room with artificial air freshener scents and carpets and closed windows. I feel sick. And one thing that I've noticed, it's like I can't breathe. And one thing I've noticed, when I've been in Central America and the Caribbean, the air quality in the cities seems worse than anything I've experienced in America. And a lot of times that's because they have no standards for fuel emissions, right? Yeah. There's no standards for fuel emissions, and the air is really toxic. I remember I used to spend a lot of time in Costa Rica. And I just remember, being in San Jose, and I didn't want to inhale. Every time I inhaled, I felt like I was breathing in poisonous air. And the type of thick smoke and stuff that came from the trucks and the cars, it's nothing like that in the U.S., okay? So, and I think that a lot of people, there's a lot of people I see who decide to leave America and move to Africa, or they want to move to South America, Central America, and they act as if all they talk about is how much cheaper it is. And they act as if, you have access to the same healthy life. And that's not true. Ultra processed foods is a worldwide problem, right? It's not just an American problem. And ultra processed foods, that problem is worse. Okay, worse, a lot worse when you're in the Caribbean, when you're in Africa, and when you're in South America. Okay, Europe is like, one of the not including London or the UK, because London, they eat more processed food in London than any place I've been in the US. But a lot of Europe is like the one place in the world where you can actually maybe like have easy access to good quality food. Okay. So let me get into it, all right? I have so much to say, all right? So first of all, and I'm not a bandwagon rider, okay? I'm going to tell the truth. I research facts, all right? Okay, so for one, upon arriving in Dakar, which is in Senegal in West Africa, it was very hard for me to breathe. I got back yesterday. I still feel like I need to clean dirt out of my nose hairs, right? And I still feel like I'm having issues breathing. And just thinking about Dakar is making me have a hard time breathing. Because the air there I've never experienced air that was so thick, okay? So thick with dirt and just dirt and dust and gasoline particles that I immediately could tell, right? And then, the Airbnb I was at, and I ended up moving to 2 different Airbnbs, right? Every single one had this artificial air freshener that's plugged in, okay? And I couldn't find it, but it was so strong. Like I told you, I could not deal with artificial scents. I have a video that I did a couple years ago called Toxic Air. Okay, you should look at it on my page, The Body Scientist. It's on my IG and my YouTube. It's called Toxic Air, and I'm talking about not just how toxic the air can be outside, but how toxic the air can be in your house. A lot of times, the air in people's homes is more toxic than the air outside. Now that's true in America. I don't know if that's true in some of these African countries, right? Where like I feel like it's probably toxic in both places, because one thing about Dakar is that the 3 Airbnbs I went to, because I had a problem at one, I went to another nightmare, I went to a third, just the worst nightmare, and then I left. They all had this very strong artificial scents. And I went to one of the restaurants I went to, same thing. I wanted to sit inside the restaurant. It was like this nice restaurant. As soon as I stepped in, it was the strongest artificial smell of like artificial air freshener. Okay, those artificial air freshener plug-in stuff like that are full of cancer-causing chemicals. Full of cancer-causing chemicals. You're going to talk about getting cancer in your respiratory system, or having asthma and breathing problems, or getting cancer other places. You definitely don't want to be breathing in artificial air fresheners. Actually, I never saw any candles when I was in Senegal. It wasn't candles. It was some type of, hidden device that was emitting this artificial air freshener. Like people in the States have plug-ins. I didn't see anything plugged in, but there was something. It was coming from somewhere, okay? And it was very strong. I can taste the chemicals, right? I can taste them. So when I left Senegal, I remember... 2 nights ago, the ride to the airport, it was like 1 hour and 40 minutes, right? And I just remember, like, first of all, when it's hot, to me, when it's hot and dirty and hot and dust in the air and hot and pollution, it's like the heat makes it worse, right? Like, when you're hot and dirty, the combination of the two just magnifies, okay? And when you think about it, these fuel emissions are actually contributing to global warming and making the planet hotter, right? But upon leaving, like my whole ride to the airport, I could not breathe. Okay, actually, the day that I left, today is Wednesday. I left there on Monday night. On Monday evening before I headed to the airport, I had the worst case of like heartburn or something. And I never get heartburn. I don't have acid reflux. I don't have those problems. But I remember I had such horrible pain and burning and irritation in my chest, right? And I know it was from breathing that air constantly, okay? And then on the ride to the airport, like, I needed the window down because I need fresh air because the cars there are really old. And when I say really old, I mean old in the worst way. Because, I've been to Cuba. The cars are old, but the cars in Cuba are kept up better than they were in Dakar, right? So, I need to open the window to have fresh air, but then there's no fresh air. Because I was taking the smallest little inhales, the tiniest little inhales, because I could feel the dirt and the dust on my eyeballs, okay? I could feel it on my eyeballs. I definitely could, every time I inhaled, I could smell it, I could taste it. It was thick, okay? And it made me feel horrible. So I started to, because I observed the obvious. Like, it was obvious to me that the air was absolutely terrible, right? And I'm from New York City, so I'm from a major city. New York City has polluted air, right? But New York City's air is nowhere near, not even comparable to the air that I was breathing when I was in Dakar, okay? And so I ended up looking it up because, like I told you, I like facts. I like dealing with facts. And I came across this article. And on my YouTube page, I'm going to post these links below my video on my YouTube page, okay? So definitely check out the other links so you can do your own research. Or use Google and do your research, right? But I found this article, the BBC, and it's titled, Our Children Are Gasping. Our Children Are Gasping, Senegal's Toxic Air Battle, right? And this article was written in 2019. Good morning, people. Okay, so in the photo, it has a 2-year-old that it says this 2-year-old loves the aerosol therapy room at Senegal's Albert Royer Children's Hospital, where she gets to fall asleep in her mother's lap, breathing deeply, something that is usually hard to do. Okay, in this photo, and you could find this, like I said, in this photo, you see this baby with, the aerosol therapy thing on because she can barely breathe. Okay, so I'm going to read some of this to you, okay? It says, the mask over her face pumps out medicine that soothes her asthmatic lungs, a condition worsened by air pollution. The hospital in the capital, Dakar, has a large unit dedicated to respiratory issues. Dr. Ba, who has been working there for 15 years, says the number of patients keeps growing and growing, something he thinks is linked to worsening air quality in the city. Okay. And Dakar does have particularly bad levels of outdoor pollutants or tiny particles known as particulate matter, which is how pollution is measured. Okay. Now, this then it gets into how to measure, the details of measuring these particulate matter. So it says air pollution. What is particulate matter? Microscopic particles that can be inhaled into the lungs and cause serious health problems. The particles come in many tiny sizes, often from traffic fumes, and can be made up to hundreds of different chemicals. Can be made of up to 100 different chemicals. Okay. PM10, particles of 10 microns and smaller in diameter. PM 2.5, particles of 2.5 microns and smaller in diameter, about 20 times smaller than a grain of sand, and small enough to get into the bloodstream, okay? Evidence is growing that PM can limit the growth of children's lungs, okay? Researchers are investigating the potential effects of these particles on conditions such as dementia. About 7 million people are estimated to die each year from exposure to fine particles that penetrate deep into the lungs and cardiovascular system. Now, it says something about dementia, okay? There's somebody that I know that lives there that's actually a friend of my dad's, and he's younger than me, okay? He's in his 30s, and, he was supposed to be helping me with coming there and helping me decide where to stay, and I gave him the dates that I was going to be there, like, probably 2 months ago, okay? I gave him the dates more than once. And then all of a sudden, he was contacting me because it was like he just forgot everything, right? He just was like, asked me when I was coming. I'm like, I told you already. It was actually written in our thread. And he told me, I have a condition. I remember he said to me, I have a condition where I just forget everything and I don't know. And that to me sounded weird. And I thought something was wrong with him. I'm like, what